Hello, hello, everybody. It's Sharon here from Content Sparks, and we are ready to go live. Just launched something today, the QuickStart Podcast Playbook. And instead of going into detail into that course, I'm going to talk more about some of the challenges of teaching online, live. So something like this. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about, which I'll get into in a second, is tech challenges which I'm already having. So if you can leave in the comments, which you should be able to see depending on where you are right below the video, can you just let me know that you can hear me and see me? Because I had a few problems last week and I see a few problems going on today, which I don't normally have. All right, so just leave me a note in the comment if you can. I'm looking out. If you have any trouble throughout, you can always just try refreshing your screen if something disappears. But I've put my video on a higher resolution today, and I think it could make it a little slow. I can always change that. So let me know whether you can see me and hear me. All right. I know people are just starting to come on. So just leave a comment for me. I'm looking out for that. All right. Otherwise, I will jump right in, looking out for comments. In the meantime, like I said, we just launched something today, and I'm not going to talk a lot about that unless you ask me to. All right. So anytime you have a question, comment, put it in below. And if you're in Facebook, I should be able to see that. In YouTube, I can see that as well. So leave those. Dana said, or I don't know if it's Dana or Dana, that all is good on YouTube. Excellent. Okay. Hopefully it's all right on Facebook as well. So I'm going to take that as my cue to get going. So the very, very short, quick, that's just the link for the launch today, which I said I'm not going to be talking a lot about unless you ask me. I'll just show you the launch bonuses at the end. That's contentsparks.com/podcasting. Pretty easy to do. And then most of the time I will share my screen. We'll talk about challenges of teaching live online. And I'm hoping that those of you who have experience with teaching live online will contribute your tips. I know a lot of people watch this as a replay, and I've changed the timing a bit. So I'm already going against some of my advice, but it was all kind of last minute changes. And I know you guys have had experience with this as well. And if I head over to my screen, what I'm doing today, I'll hide this now, is I've set up my slides in Canva. So I'm kind of demoing things. This is really demoing a live stream versus a formal getting into a Zoom group, like a Zoom call, which I think is easier for teaching live if you have smaller groups because you can see people and you see, all those grids. I think most people have been on a Zoom call by this point. So I think Zoom is better for that kind of interactive teaching of a course. But I'm doing it with slides here using StreamYard to teach this sort of thing live. And the reason I am just showing you this screen is to try to prevent some of the tech problems that I had last time, because it can drain resources. Normally, you can go up into this little present tab. If you can see, my arrow isn't really showing, but on the upper right, there's something that says present, and you can share your whole screen. I also always use 2 monitors as well. So top 7 challenges of teaching online. And down at the bottom here, I will keep moving along. One of the things I hear often from our customers is that the whole idea of teaching online is just too much. Even recording video sometimes is just too much getting on camera. But you can do it. And we're going to go through tips of different challenges. And you can start by recording video. That is how I started, and then start diving into doing some live stuff. Sometimes now I prefer the live because video is all the setup and recording, and then you feel you have to edit it, and it's not as relaxed necessarily. So live, you can make some mistakes, people understand it. So let's go through all these challenges. There are 7 that I'm going to go through in this time that we have. I have no more, I have to have a hard stop just before what's 10 o'clock my time, noon in East Coast. So technical difficulties. This is the thing I think that holds back most people is that worry about tech. That and then how you look and how you sound but the worry of something going wrong. And it happens. So the first thing you should acknowledge is it happens and it will happen. And it's good to have a backup plan if you can. If you can have a co-host, that's great too. Most people starting out don't have that. Might have an assistant who can come on and take over. But the main thing is to first test everything. That doesn't mean it'll all work, but you test it. You test your internet connection, try to be wired in. And I said note here, minimize extra resource drains. This is really critical. That's one of the reasons I'm just sharing my screen today with my Canvas slides rather than doing it into present, because I want to show other tabs as well on my screen. And everything you open up is going to be another drain on your resources on the internet. So try to minimize that, reboot your computer before you start. These are all, simple things. And do a trial run, maybe with a friend, or when I did my first live stream, I did it to myself as a private one on Facebook. You can do that too, just to see what it looks like. Same with the Zoom. You can go on and make it a meeting just with yourself, and you can see how it goes, but ideally with someone else so they can see what it's like on the other end. And also, if you tell people in advance what to prepare. So if you're teaching a series of live classes, send out an email and tell them exactly what to prepare. If you have a co-host, get on a good 20 minutes beforehand to make sure all the tech is working. I always do that when I have a guest or I'm a guest on something. We get on beforehand because inevitably there is some issue. The microphone's not working. I'm getting feedback through their speakers. There's always something. So make sure that students know what kind of equipment they have to have. Make sure, hopefully, the landscaper isn't outside. You don't have the noise in the background. Test that all out. And also communicate with people right from the beginning what they can do for troubleshooting. This is why it's great if you can have an assistant or someone moderating in the background, because they can go in the comments and tell people what to do. So the most common one is to just refresh your screen. That's what I said in the very beginning. And I already know that from experience. That's something that works. So you can tell them to refresh their screen, and usually they can come back on or go out and come back in again. And I made a note here too that you can always combine video with a live Q&A. So this is a very low stress way to get into some sort of teaching online, getting comfortable with that. So you can say with one of our courses, take the slides, however you want to do them in PowerPoint, or import them to Canva or somewhere else. Record your little videos that you drip out one by one, and every single day or whatever schedule makes sense. Send it out, tell people, watch this, do the work, and then have a live Q&A. And that's your first easy, low stress way to get into some sort of teaching, because you're just getting on, preferably in a Zoom of some sort, and answering questions. So if something goes wrong, you can always reschedule it. It's not a big deal. Right. So I definitely recommend that as one way to get started, because people don't necessarily have to listen to you teach it online if it's a certain, concept step by step. They can watch it and then come back. I'm in a course now where I'm learning how to use Descript, that AI video tool, which is awesome so far. And he's teaching some stuff live, but he has the recordings, and then we come back in and ask questions. So I watched some stuff yesterday. I recorded our sales page video where I went in and I showed everything in the materials for this podcasting course we released. And there are a couple things that came up that I wouldn't have been able to ask about necessarily live, because I needed to go off and do stuff first. So think about doing that as well. So that's the tech side. And I can go on, but that's the main thing. Managing distractions is another thing that is incredibly difficult in this day and age. So if somebody is really eager to get to learn, they will be willing to turn off all the distractions. If someone isn't engaged, then you're going to have more trouble. So you always want to keep them engaged, encourage them at the very beginning, do your housekeeping to close out all the tabs, close their door, grab a cup of coffee, because that's not distracting to drink. And tell them to turn off notifications, which most people forget to do, even if they mean to, and set some clear guidelines for the chat. So, for example, I've told you to drop comments and stuff in the chat as we go if you have questions, because I'm prepared to answer those at different points, and it's good to stop throughout and answer them so that people don't get distracted by the chat. I'm sure you've been in a Zoom or some sort of class before where you see the chat going crazy. Well, people aren't listening to you if they're busy chatting. So they might have it as answering, put some specific questions in to save them, but tell people, hey, I will stop to answer questions at a certain point. So try and just focus on what I'm saying and then stop periodically. And also plan to share your slides. So something like this, I can share these slides for you guys if you want it afterwards. It's easy enough for me to print them out in a PDF and share them. But that way you're not just, people aren't taking screenshots or writing things down the whole time if they know that they're going to get those slides. And it's such a simple thing to do, to make it to just print them as a PDF and separate them out. And if you're doing some sort of online course platform where you're going to put the videos afterwards, you just print those slides and make them a download as well. And I'm glad this is helpful. Facebook user, because I'm doing this into 2 different groups, I'm streaming into 2 different groups on Facebook, you actually have to give StreamYard approval for me, and I should have done this in the housekeeping, for me to see your name. So I'm going to show you, and this is a cool thing with StreamYard where I can set up things in advance and put it on the screen. So if you go to streamyard.com/Facebook, you can give permission for me to see your name with your comment. So if you want to go do that so I can see who you are, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. StreamYard.com/Facebook. I just don't want to lose you for very long. And this is a great thing, like I said, with StreamYard, which I can try and show you a bit later. So I'm glad this is really helpful. So managing distractions, I said, the slides, encourage people to turn their notifications off, close tabs, close doors, set guidelines, all that sort of thing. And that is number 2, challenge number 2. We're moving along. So challenge number 3, which is another one that is for teaching live online. So we're talking about teaching live online, not in person in a classroom, which is very different. Limited interaction and engagement. This is really an issue for pretty much any type of online, no matter how interesting it is. So you can prepare icebreakers, questions, polls, short activities to do live, all that sort of thing. Show them up on the screen, things like a poll. I'm not doing it in this particular presentation because I'm just moving through. It's not the same sort of thing. So if you're teaching something like our new podcasting course, you can generate a whole bunch of questions. This is where ChatGPT and all those tools can come in really handy, because you can give it, say, one module of the course and ask it for ideas for icebreakers or polls or questions that you can ask. And half the stuff you won't be able to use, but a lot of it will get your brain working. So you can get some icebreakers together. Often you'll see people asking, where are you from? What's your name? All that different stuff. I don't like the ones where people say, oh, if I can show you how to make $10,000 in one day, Are you on board? Do you want to hear that? Tell me. Yes, yes, yes. These sort of no-brainer, obvious questions that people are just saying it in order to get someone to do some thumbs up in the chat. Personally, I don't like that. I know a lot of people use it. A lot of people who are famous, the gurus who teach online, use that. I would rather have a question like a general, where are you from? What's your biggest challenge? A poll. Are you a beginner, an intermediate, more advanced? Have you ever used this tool before? If it's podcasting, have you ever tried to do a podcast? Do you enjoy listening to podcasts? Little things that are just going to get some interaction, easy to answer, and maybe give you some feedback as well. So those are great to do and spread them out throughout your whole presentation. Breakout rooms is another thing. I have not tried this yet, but I know I have customers who have done it. For instance, I have one customer who is in the Netherlands, and he does sales training with salespeople. And what he does is use breakout rooms. So in Zoom, you can do breakout rooms where you assign people. And I don't want to try and open my Zoom because I don't know what will happen. But if you go to Zoom and you have it something like this open, you can't see the thing on the bottom, but there's something for breakout rooms. You can open it up and specify a number of breakout rooms and have it assigned manually. And there's a whole thing where you can assign people the rooms. You can do it manually, automatically. You can go into each room to check on people and answer questions. You can set a timer where everyone automatically comes back to the main room when you're ready. So this customer line does it where they practice their sales skills in pairs in those rooms. And that was a while ago. So they've had this feature for a while. And that's a really good one to do. So try that out. And if you need to, I would go through the tutorials on that to make sure you're comfortable with it. But Zoom has a whole bunch of those. You can just go into their learning center. It's one of the things on the top when you're in your Zoom, and you'll see there's in-meeting navigation using breakout rooms and breakout room pre-assign. You can pre-assign as well. So that's something I highly recommend that you try and do, that you give a try to. Maybe do it as a practice session with a few people or really good customers or something like that who you can try it out with. Give them a little assignment, like a topic to discuss. And then you can try that out in a class, an online class where you give them one of the short assignments. I wouldn't do anything long, but you can do shorter things. If it's something longer, then you're going to want to break it up and have them come back for a Q&A the next day or a couple days later. So try that out. I believe it's available on other platforms. I just don't know. If anyone has other platforms they've used where you can do breakout rooms, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear. There might be some webinar platforms that do that. Also, you can schedule one-on-one or group virtual office hours. That's kind of what I was talking about before, where you can have a recorded video and then have a Q&A. But if you do a live class, you can also schedule something afterwards, like one-on-one for very small groups, so that you are engaging and answering people's questions. You could do it via email as well and say, hey, I'm done, our time's up. But as you do it, if you have any questions, just email me. And that way you can get people moving on that stuff and keep them engaged. So, and all the things I talked about before with the icebreakers and the questions and polls. So work on that, because it's always going to be hard to get interaction no matter what. We've seen that with all the stuff during COVID and trying to teach, that it's just not the same as in person. So if you can combine it somehow as well, that would be great. So time management is another. I have a really tough time with this because I want to answer everybody's questions. And even though I prepare stuff, I always think of something else as I go. So you need to set some clear times to start and end, especially as people are managing their schedule. So for instance, now I know I have to finish in 40 minutes. That's how much time I have left, maximum, preferably less, because I have another call after this. So other people are going to be in the same situation. They set up meetings and then they have to leave before you're done and they didn't get to hear everything. Um, and that's the kind of thing where you can set the timer, keep your clock in front of you. Usually it's right there on the screen, depending on the app. I can see right in StreamYard in my upper left-hand corner where it says live and it says how long I've been on. And you usually have a clock. So that shouldn't be that difficult, but if you can plan in advance your agenda and say, this is how long I'm going to spend on each thing, then it'll help you with your time. And once you've done it once, if it's a class you're doing more than once, you'll see where you didn't get the timing right and you can adjust it. So all of that, the more you do it, the more feedback you're going to get. Also, if you're doing something where different people are talking, so the second point here is give individuals set time for speaking and take longer questions offline or for the next session. This is one of the hardest things to do. So in any kind of group coaching, group mastermind sessions, um, you might have no one who wants to talk or everyone who wants to talk. And then you feel you have to go through all of them. So you want to set and say, okay, 5 minutes each person. And if there's somebody who has a question that's particularly long, detailed, you can say, hey, I can't cover that all here. And it's perfectly fine to admit that. Can't give it all here, but let's talk about it in the next session. Or let's talk about it in the group, in the community, and have a bigger discussion there. So don't let one person take over the whole thing. Um, Another thing you can do for that, for the discussion and people going over, is say, okay, submit your questions in advance. Those people you're going to cover first in any questions. And if there's time, I'll cover others. So I've done that before. That works out really well because often people don't submit the questions in advance. So those that do are going to get the advantage of actually having their questions answered. And then you go through what you can and you say, okay, we're done now. Hang on to your questions. We'll answer them next time, or we'll answer them in the group. And that encourages them to also submit them in advance the next time too. Schedule breaks to avoid burnout. That's really most important for something that's a longer session. So if you've ever been on one of these full day conferences, so an all day online training, you have to have breaks. I would say no more than an hour at a time. That's typical for most people. And then give them half an hour break, or it could be less depending on how long it's going to be, but half an hour gives someone a time to go get a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, uh, pull themselves together, take care of a few emails, and if you can, keep the live stream or whatever it is open so that you have maybe some music playing in the background and people know it's still there. They don't just completely forget about you and you're gone, and then you can announce it. I was in one session where somebody had a countdown clock on the screen as well, so you knew when it was going to be up, and then make some sort of announcement. So always try and do that as well. It'll help people stay focused. The next one, number 5, is ensuring accessibility. And I am keeping an eye on any questions, but it looks like everyone is there. Yvonne, okay, you're the one who commented before. Yvonne just said the permissions. Yeah, they lose things. Ensuring accessibility. So accessibility can mean a lot of different things. It's actually being able to consume it, being able to access it, things like captions as well. So there's actually being able to get to the stuff, like, is it online in a portal? Can I see the recordings? So the transcripts, but it's also accessible for people who maybe can't see the screen as well or can't hear as well. You need to make sure you have multiple modes of learning in there, even when it's live. So don't just leave it for a recording or a transcript. And that's important. You try and also have captions for audio. I do that. I can do that in the recording using this new tool, Descript. It's actually not a new tool. It's been around for a while, but I just started playing with it yesterday. So you can just put a video in there, it'll transcribe it, and you can put the captions on. Really, really simple, and you can edit it. Just editing in the text. It's super simple. But you can do that with live as well. Some things automatically put it on. I believe Facebook automatically does it as well. But then provide the transcript, provide the recordings, make sure that I said don't rely on visuals when teaching. So normally we always say have visuals, have visuals. It's really important to do that. A model, a graphic, something, but don't just have the visuals because otherwise someone who maybe can't hear as well is just looking at the visual and doesn't really know what's going on. Or maybe they have their sound turned way down because they're somewhere where they can't have it on or they don't have earphones. Always trying to scribe so they can hear vocally, someone who can't see as well. And also have some text, some notes, which you'll hand out also. So it's good to always use different modes of learning. Schedule sessions well ahead of time for planning. This is important if you're doing, say, a series as well. Um, an off-the-cuff live stream, hey, we're going to have a Q&A. You can't always do well in advance, but something where there's a series where someone's buying one of your courses, tell them what the dates are going to be, tell them when the replays will be ready, that kind of thing, where they can access it, all of that stuff so they can plan it out because there's always going to be some conflict. And also be aware of time zones. So if most of your customers are on the East Coast of the US, you might be doing it midday, that sort of time, but maybe late enough so that people on the West Coast can watch, but also not too late so that if there are people in the UK, they can watch. It's always a juggling act. Or some people deliver a session twice at two different times so that they can cover if you have that big an audience. That's, a lot more work, but if you're charging a lot for your course, that can work well too. So think about that also. And again, if you guys have any extra tips, I would love to hear. The next one, balancing lecture and activity time. Now, this is something that's an issue both for the live online teaching and the in-person. If you're doing a session like a VIP retreat or just a seminar at a meetup, that kind of thing, you do need to try and balance things out or you lose people's attention. We're not doing activities in this, but if you're teaching something in particular, like one of the courses, you can break it up with things like the polls, but you can also break it up with other types of quizzes and activities. So I would not go more than a few minutes at a time if you have a group where you can interact. So something like on a Zoom, where you talk for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then you ask a question, ask a poll, get people to do something. If you have specific activities, like in one of our courses where there's a question they have to do, you can stop it. And that's my third point on this slide here. You can give a set time and say, okay, take 5 minutes now and brainstorm topics for your next podcast or your next live stream or your next video tutorial, whatever it is. And then we're going to come back in 5 minutes and share. And if you can put a timer on the screen, even better. There are all sorts of apps. And if you're sharing your screen like this, you could just put a clock, put a countdown timer right up on the screen, and then have some background music playing. And then say, okay, time's up. Let's come back and have a discussion about it and ask them questions, get people to share. And people will do that. If it's something short and fun, you can do that. If it's something intense, it'll be harder. But I've been in sessions like this where you go and you practice with something, you do brainstorming, you do a little search online, you look at your analytics, any types of short things that they can do are really great to break things up. And of course, be flexible. adjust things if you have to. That's going, and you can always add another session. So if something's just taking way too long, to say, you know what, we're going to stop here and pick it up again tomorrow. And that way you also know for the next time you teach it just what worked and what didn't. That was challenge number 6. And that brings us to number 7, building a sense of community. Um, One of the things, I have a general community, and I also have my insiders group, which is the for customers. And one of the challenges there is that you've got to be posting regularly, and it isn't people who have all come in at the same time. So when you're doing a course, a specific course, or even a challenge, it's really great to have a community that's just for that, what's called a cohort group. So the people who are all going through it at the same time. And you can have it just open for that period of time that the course is available, or say you're giving them 3 months, so it's manageable for you as well. But it also motivates people to do all the work because, the group's going to close. But you can build that community by having people go back in and say, okay, they finished day 1, post this, that, and the other, post a little video, comment on what you did, share a screenshot of the work you just did, share your biggest question, your biggest takeaway. You can have hashtags, all those sorts of things. If you're doing it as a cohort group where everyone's going through at the same time, that will build a better sense of community, and people will share their challenges, and you'll see people form relationships and end up networking and making other friends and connections. Um, and when you're running that, encourage people to introduce themselves, share their interests, their backgrounds, what industry they're in, what their biggest challenge is. And that way people can see who they can relate to also and connect with them. Facebook is still the easiest one to do this on. I mean, it's just, we were having this discussion somewhere in another session. Maybe it was the last one that I did here on doing a standout course, that Facebook, face it. It still is the easiest because people are on it and the threads work and these separate communities you can log into, but it's much tougher to get people logging in and commenting and adding stuff. So if you're okay with Facebook and your audience is on there, just have a short-term community. 3 months, course is up, give them something every day, send an email every day reminding them. That's all stuff you can automate. You can just set up to look every day at your Facebook and answer things. Um, and also, you can provide opportunities for students to collaborate and work together. So that can be a little tougher. It depends on how big your group is. So if you have a smaller group where you get to know everybody, you can match them up. Or you could, in your community, have people message each other based on what their interests are. But that's going to be tougher because you might have people who don't get matched up with someone. So that's the kind of thing where maybe you could do your Zoom breakout room where you've done activities in there and match people up and then tell them, okay, you guys are now a pair or matched up, connect offline for the next activity. But you can, and that will start building that, and then share in the group or share on the next live Q&A. So you try and replicate what you would do in person. The tech is not quite there, but it's almost there, where you can do that kind of thing. And then when you come back to a live session, people can present. You could have 2 people even presenting at the same time what they worked on. So that'll build some community, and the more you can get that discussion going. So really the tough part here is for most people just getting online, getting on live at all. But that is what's going to build engagement. They're going to get to know you. They're going to get to know each other. If you use something like that, Zoom room, not Zoom room, it's Zoom calls and Zoom breakout rooms. Sorry, Zoom rooms are something completely different. But it's when you're in the meeting, there's a Zoom breakout room. to get people doing that. Try that out, play with it. But really my number one tip is to practice. There's no getting around it. The more you get on and try these sorts of things, get onto a live stream like this and get some activity. We're a small group today because I'm doing it at a different time with not as much advance notice. In order to get more people on live, you need to, and this is from experience, you need to send out enough emails in advance, motivate people by telling them what you're going to be talking about, send reminders 2 days before, day of, an hour before. That all gets a lot more people on. And something like this live stream, I never get as many people as when I use Zoom or a webinar platform. So Zoom or webinar is going to get you more people. I don't know why, but it does. Maybe it's the reminders that go out. If you know, let me know, but I always get more people that way. But the benefit of the live stream is it is that casual. I can multi-stream to different places. I did say I was going to show you StreamYard and what that looks like. It's going to look a little weird when I put this over on my screen because it's two different screens. But if I put this over here to my other monitor, this is just because, I've got everything going together, so it goes into infinity. But I'm looking at my second monitor, which is where I always share stuff, which is why I'm looking away. And you can see in here that over on the right, this is what I'm looking at as I'm doing my live stream. I see the time going. I've got a thing for banners, so I can put something like, I can add banners all in advance. I can show there's the link for podcasting. I can go back and see comments and show a comment on the screen. So any questions, this all makes it much easier, more interactive. I can have a private chat if I have, say, a co-host and there's some sort of problem, set up my own branding I have set up and banners. So that's what this looks like. That's why I like StreamYard for this sort of thing, for a live stream. And then, of course, I'm sharing a screen. Whoops, this went to sleep. Oh, this is a cool little app that I have that someone recommended to me. It's called the Marvelous Suspender. So what it does is it puts some of your tabs to sleep so that you're not drawing resources on it. Let me see if any of the others are still showing. No, that's not showing. All right. Well, I can go back to here. So the last thing is I promised you I would show you the launch bonuses for today's launch. So if you have any other questions right now around the live teaching, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to hop over right now while we have a little bit of time left and show you those launch bonuses. So this is the URL for our new course. It's something everyone's been asking about for ages. It's called the QuickStart Podcast Playbook. So this is to get people off to a quick start with setting up a podcast. So it's for beginners, anyone who has not done podcasting before, wants to set one up. Podcasts are still so popular and growing. It's unbelievable. People like to listen. They're also great for multi repurposing because you can create them into videos too. But this will take people through step by step. There's a lot of stuff on the sales page. Like I said, I did do a little video yesterday with a peek inside, so I'm not going to go through all the materials. And I was doing that also to play with this new tool, Descript. Here, let me hide this for a minute so that you can see. See me? Hey. You can go down and read all of that. But the launch bonuses, which are listed down here, there's a slideshow too. This we created in Canva, live screenshots of everything, all the materials. So I did a video of it, and I also put it in Canva, and you can embed that slideshow in there. So just another little quick tip that I wasn't planning on giving you. And then there's the early bird bonuses. So there's a 5-day challenge kit, and there's this podcast marketing match assessment, which is going to be great for a lead magnet or pre-qualifier. So I'll show you that first. That's the assessment. So we have it in a Word doc. So that one, if you want to just use it as a Word doc and maybe load it into some other tool, you can do that, or you can just put your own design on it and make it a PDF and have people fill it in. Um, I'm just saying there are some other tools for having people fill it in, but we did it all as a doc and in Canva that you would send to people. So you could do this in a few different ways. One way, if you're doing it as a pre-qualifier, like to see if somebody is appropriate for the course, like it's a good match because it's a marketing match assessment, is to have them fill this all in, send it back to you, and then you can see where they answered, "That's true of me, I'm not sure, that's not true of all." They're true at all. And there's 20 questions in here. So for instance, there are topics within your industry you feel passionate about and can discuss enthusiastically. That's something you really want to have if you're going to do a podcast. You can commit to a regular time, to consistent content creation process, all the things that are good to have. And then there's different scores in here. In this case, if you were doing it as a pre-qualifier, all of these should have a call to action for your course in some way. If you're doing it more, sorry, I got that backwards. If it's a pre-qualifier, you're going to have all this and you're going to then discuss with them likely or send them a recommendation one way or another. If you're doing this as a lead magnet, so something where people opt into, then you're going to have a call to action for each of these. Or you can set it up in a tool online and send them the results automatically. But it's very easy to make this a lead magnet and have some follow-up. So we give you one lead magnet in the course that's an opt-in report that can be that has slides, that can be a webinar or recording or live stream. One of the bonuses is a challenge kit. So that's another thing you can do as a lead magnet, but this is a really simple one. So use it as a pre-qualifier to see if someone is the right fit before you accept them to the course, or have a one-on-one discussion like with a client. So let me just show you the Canva version of this as well. If you go into, you'll get a Canva folder. There's a PDF which I actually opened before, with a link to Canva. So this will be a template, right? It'll look like this. You'll say use template, and then you'll have to have a free Canva account, free or paid, and you can go in and edit it. So it gives some instructions there. And then what we did is we put the whole assessment in this pretty design, and you can change the colors, make it a PDF, and say, send it to a client as an example, and say, okay, let's have a call about this and see if podcasting is right for you. So this is separate from teaching a course. This would be actually having a discussion as well. So lots of different ways you can use it, but those are the key ones. And now, challenge kit. That's the last thing I'm going to show you. So that was the other launch bonus, which is here. So what we do here is we take the basics of your opt-in report and we repurpose it into a 5-day challenge, which is one of the best ways to really show people that you can add some value, give them quick wins, get them excited about your course, get them wanting to sign up for your course. The highest conversions you'll get is by doing something like this. Now, I wouldn't do it for a $27 course if you're planning to just give them a little ebook, but do it for a more expensive one. And it makes sense to do that work and try and run it live. So you can see we've put it into, there's some instructions that you can do, a little welcome, use some of the instructions as welcome, and then we put it all into daily emails with placeholders. And you can send people this sort of information and then do a little live stream on each of them as well. So if you can do a little live stream or Q&A, each one has some action steps at the end. So you can see today's action, brainstorm topics for your first podcast that your listeners would be interested in. Pick 4 topics and craft a catchy title. These are quick things they can do. You don't want to do everything that would be in the course. You want quick wins that entice them so they get a little something done. They can do it every day in, say, no more than half an hour, depending on your audience, and then they'll want to do more. So they have gotten some, but they haven't gotten everything. So that is all there. Then there's a couple emails that will help you with promoting your course as well. A next steps thing with lots of placeholders, and then a final follow-up email where you would give them some special deal on your course. And we give you some worksheets in there as well that you can send to them each day. This is an easy thing also to run, say, in a Facebook group. Very super easy to do, or on a learning platform. And that's everything. So that's everything I was going to cover today. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to come back on screen here. This is another thing you can do with StreamYard, and give you the URL. So would love to hear your feedback, what you guys have done before with teaching live online, if it's something that you want to do, you've been hesitant to do, whether these tips were helpful. And then grab the course. Let me know what you think of it, because this was one that a lot of people want. And you can also use it to be starting your own podcast if you wanted to, if that's something that interests you and that's something that your audience would be interested in. All right. And I'm going to sign off before I go do my Descript training. And I'll try and share the stuff about that on another call also, but I have to learn it first. I'll learn it and then I'll teach it, just like I always tell you to do with our courses. If you don't know it, learn it, put it into place, practice it, and then teach it. And because there's always going to be people that are behind you that want to learn it, and you sometimes forget that. All right. And remember to get this now, because this first few days is when you get those bonuses along with the discount as well during the launch. All right. Signing off, guys. Take care, and I will see you soon. Talk to you soon. Bye now.